Christopher Sweat here, Graystack Media, Chicago, but we're in Countryside right now, and I'm standing here with Tyrone Muhammad, who's running for U.S. Senate as an independent, and then James Mendrick, current DuPage County Sheriff, getting ready to run for governor of the state of Illinois. These gentlemen had a conversation just moments ago. So I just wanted to talk to you guys for a little bit, maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, first question for you guys. We all live in different parts of Illinois. One of the things that I hear a lot is like really negative sentiment about what we're doing here in Illinois. People like to drill down on crime and some of these like negative issues. You know, for you, Tyrone, what are you going to do to kind of like rebrand the image of Illinois if you get elected in the U.S. Senate?
The thing is, if you don't deal with public safety, it don't matter how you earn, where you work, home ownership, or anything. You can't protect your family, your community, and your children. We need to start from zero. Okay. And public safety, to me, is number one. And starting with in the work that Sheriff Mendrick has done, when the men return back to society, they have to have real, true wraparound programs that don't put a Band-Aid to their issues or ills. But public safety is number one for me.
Okay. Sheriff Mendrick.
I hold the same sentiment. Public safety is hugely important. I think rehabilitation within our correctional facilities is paramount. That is where we can take the people who do commit crime, give them opportunities, and stop our recidivism levels like we have, bringing our recidivism down from 75 to 15%. That can be replicated across the whole state. Criminality also has to be handled and has to be put in check. Having the weak laws like the Safety Act and having the sanctuary state where we're spending all of our money, these are laws that have to be at least modified, at best eliminated completely, because we're putting in politicians laws that are affecting us, statewide. And again, it's creating huge crime spikes. And I understand that, if you keep on taxing everybody, over-regulating everybody, your normal citizens are going to move out. The last 2022 census, 800,000 people left our state. We're being replaced then by people who are coming here through immigration means. And what that does is that takes the people who were maybe not as compliant with our government, and they're moving out of the state, and they're being replaced with people who are going to be very dependent on the government. So it doesn't seem like the politicians care. In fact, they're promulgating this behavior, but it's not for the people. We need to be a state for the people, by the people, and your elected officials need to be elected officials, not politicians.
Okay, that's fair. And I know the frame of today's conversation was a lot of public safety and crime. You guys are, you're running for a state seat, which would be the highest office in the state. You're running for a federal seat, which would still be the highest office because it'd be in the upper chamber of Congress. Okay. Illinois broadly.
My goal is to win so I could give him resources to do everything he needs to do in this state.
Sure, I see that. But now, Illinois still has advanced industrial manufacturing and a very advanced agricultural sector. Chicago has more trading desks than Manhattan, so there are more trading desks in Chicago than on Wall Street. How do you think about like attracting workers into some of the very capital-intense technical sectors that we have that our state is also dependent upon?
So again, why the sanctuary state gets so big in this, that's what's occupying so much of our budget money. We have to be able to attract people in. Our workers' compensation rates are 3 times higher than the collar states. We're over-regulated, overtaxed, over-litigated. Contingency litigation costs our businesses so much money that they can be sued by people who are putting no capital up, and then they have to defend the lawsuit no matter what. That's for worker compensation claims. That's if they say, I had a bad cheeseburger at your restaurant. So that's pushing all the businesses out. We have to deregulate all of these legalities that we're creating. Non-governmental organizations, billions of dollars are leaving our budget to go into places outside. I can show you a college that just got $500,000 that's been closed since 2022 on an NGO list. I can show you $2 million spent on a program called Guitars Over Guns. So it's going to be a special interest group that's going to pick that up. And those can't be FOIA'd, they can't be audited. So they're putting money into systems that we can't even check on. A job task analysis, anybody? Are there ghost payrollers? I know that there's been a problem with them having lowest responding bidders and having to pay 2 bidders because they've been awarding it to the wrong bidding company. And then there's sole source. Are there sole sources even for real? So again, me being somebody who was a detective for 6 years and looked at a budget as where's the criminality? I'm seeing that we need a complete forensic audit of our budget here. I think that we do not have a revenue problem in Illinois. We have a spending problem. It's the way our dollars are being spent on. And I'll tell you again, I got to go back to the sanctuary state. When you're looking at a $7 billion proposal a year, $44 million more for a welcoming center next year. After the budget, our state budget set on July 1. After that, JB added college for illegal immigrants, abortion pills in all the colleges, and mandatory mental health screening for all the kids in schools. Those 3 things together are about another $3.5 billion. How do you set that after July 1? How was that on a board? How was it approved? That would be, I have an $80 million budget, and I've run that budget for 12 years. You know how many times in 12 years I've gone over budget? 0. Okay. How do you appropriate an unfunded mandate of $3.5 billion a month after your budget started?
Sure. Tyrone, I know you have some thoughts on this as well.
Well, my thing is education. You mentioned tech sector. They got quantum going on in Chicago, and I don't see us even having the bodies from the communities to even service that. And it's enough of us unemployed in Chicago. As somebody who has a horticulture certification and a degree, I think that there's ways for us to produce our own fruit, teach our children and our kids horticulture so that they can understand that food don't grow out of a can, but you actually have to put your hand in the soil. Sure. But there's so many avenues of training and similar to what he's doing in the vocational sector and getting them guys workforce ready. So he said it all. He got a lot of policies, and I'm going to lean on people who already know how to do this to get my answers.
Okay, a couple more questions, and I'll start with you, Tyrone. Our city, even on Graystack, is reaching the national and international discourse a couple times a week, and a lot of the conversation is focused around what people are considering a very militant form of law enforcement operations. Can you talk about how you would deal with the federal government's ICE operations in the community if you were elected to the Senate?
Well, I'm on record as saying that I don't want National Guards in there. I said that our government should empower the community to deal with our own children and our own family members. It is my job to keep and check my community and make sure that my sons and nephews and cousins are not violating women and children. As far as the ICE, I just think the vitriol is unacceptable. Because they're federal, they're doing what they was mandated to do, right? And so I think that the local government should figure out how to work with that administration. Because I think it just happened in San Francisco. Sure. When the mayor said, hey, just let us do our own thing. Let us try to figure it out.
Right.
You can't fight against Trump. That's the president. The people elected him to do this. Sure. He has a bigger stick. That would lead nowhere, that vitriol. So I think we should be willing to work with our government. Okay. If you're a local elected official, you should be working with the national and federal government.
Okay, I see that.
Now here's the big lie. The big lie is the sanctuary state. So again, I'm going to explain to you what it was like before the sanctuary state was imposed on us. The sanctuary state is the crux of the problem. I'm going to say this right now. The raids are Pritzker raids. They're all his fault, okay? And here's why. Before the sanctuary state was imposed on us, and granted, it was Bruce Rauner who started it, but then J.B. Pritzker expanded it, so they're both at fault for this. But before the sanctuary state, we never have had anybody come into our jail just for immigration. That's just never happened. I've been at the sheriff's office for 29 years. But what would happen, let's use something simple like a battery. You beat somebody up. Something you or I would go to jail for. They would come to our jail, we would put them on a fingerprint system, and they would say detainer. Upon the detainer notification, we would notify ICE. ICE would speak to the inmate, If necessary, they would involve a consulate. They would check to see if they were running from their previous country they came from, if there was a crime they're running from, to see if they want them deported. And then they would review, they would bring a magistrate, fancy word for federal immigration judge, to determine if your new crime was worthy of deportation. And most of the time they didn't. If it was retail theft or something small, they would say, just do your process, punish them, and be done with it. But if it was a rape or murder, or if they were running from something in the other country, then they would deport. Then we would call ICE, do a warm handoff,
Sure.
and that was the whole process. But now they say, no, you can't work with ICE. You, local government, you can't work with your component of federal government.
Sure.
Now, when they are released, now the feds have to go seek them in houses, in schools, at workplaces. This is the same tactic they use in military operations where, you're looking for a terrorist, well, embed them in your society, put them in hospitals and schools, so then the military has to cut through your own civilian population to get to your target. That's what they're doing here, because J.B. Pritzker can then use these raids to say, look, I'm protecting you, the evil government's after you. No, what he should be saying is, look, I created a sanctuary state where I can't handle this in a jail, and I'm forcing the federal government to come out here and do raids because I want to be president of the United States, and I need a platform to say I'm doing something for the immigrants that I really don't care about. I just need to increase the population so I keep my congressional seat, and I need census numbers. That's why he's bringing them all here, and he's not doing anything to help them. He's causing the raids. He's bringing in a population to be hunted by his own rules.
You, as somebody who has the law enforcement experience, what do you think about the way the community is perceiving the sort of abuses? Like ICE says that their hiring process is a shit show, and that is what they said to CNN. And it turns out that they're pushing people through a hiring process I don't know if your agency would do, but they're not doing psych evals, and they're compressing the HR packet down to like 72 hours, and they're hiring people that, they don't even know if they'll be able to pass a physical or if they meet the education requirement until they bring them into training. And we've seen how unpredictable that some of their behavior is out in the field. I mean, that's completely separate from JB, right?
No, it's not. So wouldn't what you just described, wouldn't that mean then they should get rid of the sanctuary state and handle this in jails instead of out in the community? It solves the entire problem. See, that's what I'm saying. Everything you described is because of the sanctuary.
Right, but this would be an alternative reality you described. I'm talking about the current state of factual reality.
The actual reality is we need to get rid of the sanctuary state, and then the raids become unnecessary. Let's put it this way. We had 4 years of open borders with Joe Biden. This is the first year, because obviously after they finally realized that millions and millions of people have come into our country illegally. Now they have to deal with the problem. This is the first year of my 29-year career I've ever seen a raid. And it's 100% because of the sanctuary state. So here's the thing, and that's why I keep going back to it. You're reporting the causes. I'm looking at the cure, right? So if there's a cause, let's back up to the cure. The cure is put the sanctuary state away, get rid of it, and let us deal with this in a correctional facility so ICE doesn't have to run into your neighborhoods. Why are we, it seems like that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room that nobody wants to wrestle with. Here's the cause of all of it. Sure. It's a thing called the sanctuary state. But hey, we're going to talk about how awful everything is around it, but we're not going to deal with the cause.
Right. But clearly, many of the largest metros in the United States aren't getting rid of sanctuary laws.
Most don't have sanctuary laws.
Well, Denver, San Francisco,
I think there's 7.
New York City. Most major metros do, right?
I think there's 7. Is it 7 sanctuary states in the country?
Yeah, and
We're one of only 7 dumb enough states to have that rule.
but also the largest population centers in the country.
And for 13 years, we've also been the murder capital. We're on the top of all the bad lists and on the bottom of all the good lists.
Right.
So it's obviously, we have to start changing things, the root cause. I mean, when you see a bad law causing all this problem, now, the only reason you wouldn't get rid of the sanctuary state is if you had an alternative motive, like getting rid of your regular population and replacing them with a new population that's going to be more conformance. Because I'll tell you what, everybody that leaves the state are going to be the people upset with how things are. Those are your detractors. They're gone. Now say, come here, you got to come through me to get rid of them. Now you bring in dependent population who's going to be dependent on government handouts. Those will be your conformists. It's their washing population.
Okay, but in lieu of the sanctuary state policy, you're saying increase the inflows of the jail population, and then increase coordination with the federal government.
Yes, because what we do with our rehabilitation, with us knocking our recidivism levels down from 75 to 15%, we're taking our criminal population and turning them into a working population. And when somebody here illegally comes in and commits a crime, then they'd be handled by ICE in a correctional facility. So by rehabilitation and working with ICE, we fix two very large problems.
Okay. No, I appreciate your time, and it's been awesome to be a part of this conversation with you, and we hope to catch you out there again. Anything else you want to say? I know Tyrone left us, but anything else you want to say?
You know, we're just doing the right things for the right reasons, and I guess I'm very pragmatic. That's why I keep going back to some of these laws that exist that I know are the root cause of what we're dealing with. I just know that, you know, some things how do you say, you have to crack a few eggs sometimes to make an omelet.
Sure.
And there are some bad laws out there. These are laws that, by the way, I predicted were going to happen. I warned the elected officials who were passing these laws of exactly what was going to happen, and I was right. They turned out exactly the way I predicted. And I told them if they didn't let us end up handling all of these ICE issues in a correctional facility, that it would all end up in the neighborhoods of our citizens, and that's exactly what happened.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. It's great to meet you. Thank you.